A county inspector nails a condemned notice to a barn door outside Boone, North Carolina, in the winter of 1968. Behind that door, an old cooper named Elias Furr is still bending an oak stave over a low fire, raising a barrel built to outlast the man who signed the paper. He is 71 years old. He raised 4 children off the dirt floor of that shed, one hoop and one stave at a time. And the county has just decided the trade his own father taught him needs a license he will never be able to afford. If you clicked on this video, you probably think a barrel is just a barrel. What you don't know is that near everything a man like Elias made in a shed, the plain trades that fed whole families off a hand tool and a strong back, most of it can no longer be done for money where you live today. Some of it was outlawed outright. Some of it was licensed, zoned, and inspected out of reach. And some of it was just quietly undersold until nobody's grandchildren remembered it existed. I am Amos Thatcher, 7th generation on this ridge in the southern Appalachians. My people settled it in the 1790s and never left. My grandfather Eli filled a leather journal with these trades before he passed, page after page, in a hand that got shakier toward the end. And he made me promise the old ways would not die on my watch. This is me keeping that promise. Here's what I'll tell you straight before we start. Number 9 will get you a citation in a lot of American towns right now. Number 3, the Smithsonian keeps behind glass in Washington, and fewer than a few hundred people alive can still run one. And number 6, they wrote a federal law against it in 1862. And I am not touching that one until we are most of the way down. None of these 25 faded because they stopped working. Not one. They faded because somebody made more money the day you forgot them. That's not a conspiracy, and I'm not here to sell you fear. That's just a receipt. Tap subscribe if you want the buried ones pulled back into daylight, because this is the first of many. 25, counted down from 25 to 1. And the real question isn't what we lost. It's who got rich when we forgot, and how you take a piece of it back. Number 25, rendering tallow and lard for the neighborhood. Every farm wife's mother kept a rendering kettle, but the ones who turned it into money sold clean white fat by the crock to the soap makers and the bakers in town. Cube the back fat, melt it down slow so it never scorches, strain out the cracklings, and pour off a product that cost you almost nothing but an afternoon and the fat off an animal you were already eating. A single fall hog gave you gallons of it. Then Procter & Gamble put Crisco on the shelf in 1911, hydrogenated cottonseed oil, and spent the next 60 years telling America that animal fat would stop your heart. The renderer's crock went cold. Here's the turn, though. That rendered beef tallow is stable at a high heat where seed oils oxidize and break down, which is exactly why the artisan crowd now pays a premium for a jar of the same thing your great-grandmother gave away. Nobody outlawed the kettle. They just sold you shame in a can. The fat never lied. The label did. Number 24, broom making from broom corn. Arcola, Illinois, once called itself the broom corn capital of the world, and it earned the name. A man with a broom vise and a bundle of broom corn could tie 40 brooms in a single evening and sell every one of them at the general store. A good corn broom, tied tight, outlasted 3 of the cheap ones and swept better besides. The materials cost him a patch of dirt and a season. Then the factory brooms came, and then the plastic ones came in behind them from overseas by the container load, and the trade got swept right out of its own doorway. But go looking for a real hand-tied broom today, and you will find a craftsman charging $30, $40 a piece, with a waiting list running weeks deep. The broom corn never quit growing in that Illinois soil. The habit of making our own did. Number 23, splint and lightship basketry. Out on Nantucket, the men who crewed the lightships wove baskets to kill the long, gray hours at sea. And back in the hollows of Appalachia, whole families split white oak into thin ribbons and wove baskets that carried 100 weight of apples up a mountain without so much as a creak. The cost of materials was a tree you already owned and a knife you already had. Then stamped tin and molded plastic turned a basket into something you buy cheap and throw away instead of something a grandmother handed down. And now an authentic Nantucket lightship basket sells for hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars at auction to collectors. The skill didn't lose a dime of its real value. We just stopped counting it as worth anything. Number 22, chair caning and seat weaving. Your great-grandmother could take a chair with a blown-out seat, $1's worth of rattan cane, and one quiet evening by the lamp, and hand you back a woven seat that would outlast the chair's own legs. In every town there was somebody who did it for pay, $1 or $2 a chair, steady work that never ran out because chairs never stopped wearing through. Then the furniture industry sold the whole country a brand new idea, the chair you replace instead of the chair you mend, and the caner's trade dried up right along with our willingness to fix anything. The rattan still holds a grown person's weight the way it always did. The store just needed you to forget that it could. The seat lasted, the lesson didn't. Number 21. The tinker's pot repair. There was a man who came through town with a cart, and for a few cents he'd retin a worn copper pan, patch a leaking pot, mend the handle you were sure was finished, and hand it back good for another 10 years. A whole trade, a whole living built on one simple fact, that things used to be worth fixing. He carried his forge and his solder and his patience, and every kitchen on his route was a customer twice a year. Then cookware got cheap and stamped and disposable, and the tinker had nothing left to mend because a new pot cost less than his time. Somebody somewhere decided your pots should be trash instead of an asset that held its value. That decision made a fortune. It just wasn't your fortune. First pattern break, friend. From here on down, this stops being quaint. Everything below this line is a trade where somebody with a suit and a lobbyist had a reason to see it die. Because when you can't make it and you can't mend it, you have got no choice but to buy it. Keep counting with me. Number 20, lye soap sold at the market. Wood ash for the lye, rendered fat for the body, cooked slow in a kettle and cut into bars with a length of wire. 20 pounds of hard, honest soap in a single afternoon, for the cost of the ash you were sweeping out of the stove anyway. Women sold it door to door and stall to stall for real money that fed real families. Then Colgate-Palmolive and Procter & Gamble spent the better part of the 20th century convincing the country that a homemade bar simply wasn't clean enough for decent people. The catch, the part they'd rather you not know, is that a bar of handmade tallow soap now sells for $6 to $9 at any farmer's market in America, labeled artisan. And the only new wrinkle is that the moment you print a health claim on the wrapper, the FDA has an opinion about it. Same molecule your great-grandmother made in a black kettle. Same afternoon's work. The bar didn't change. The price tag did. Number 19, candles and tallow dips. Before the wire ever reached the house, light itself was a trade. A chandler dipped tallow candles or poured beeswax by the dozen and sold them by the box to see families through the long, dark half of the year. It was steady, seasonal money. Everybody needed light, and light burned down and had to be bought again. Then kerosene came, and then paraffin, a byproduct of petroleum refining, undercut everything on price, and finally the light company ran a line right past the door, and the switch on the wall ended the whole business overnight. The chandler's trade blew out like a pinched wick, and yet a real beeswax candle today outsells the paraffin one on quality every time, and people pay for it gladly. Wax, wick, patience, a couple thousand years of making your own light without ever once opening a power bill. Number 18, home dairy, butter and buttermilk for cash. A farm wife with 2 good cows churned more butter than her family could ever eat and sold the rest off the back porch, along with the buttermilk. And the cream went for cash to the neighbors who kept no cow of their own. It was a woman's own money in a time when that meant something. Then the Standard Milk Ordinance, first drafted by the U.S. Public Health Service in 1924 and adopted state by state across the country, required pasteurization for anything sold. The intent was public health, and the intent was genuinely right. But the effect on the back porch trade was fatal, and Dean Foods and Kraft were more than happy to make your butter in a factory instead and sell it back to you. Same churn, same cream, same living bacteria that made it work for 10,000 years before anybody wrote it down. The cow never got the memo. Number 17, hand-dug wells for hire. A man with a shovel, a hand auger, and a good deal of nerve could sink a stone-lined well 20 feet down and set a cast-iron pitcher pump on top. And a family had 50 to 100 gallons of clean water a day for the cost of the digging and nothing after. Well, diggers were a paid, respected trade in every rural county in the nation. Then the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974 put the EPA over public water systems, and while that law left private wells entirely alone, town after town began quietly requiring you to hook into city water wherever a municipal line ran past your lot. The utility got itself a captive customer with a bill that never ends. The well got capped and forgotten. Here's the part they'd truly rather you not sit with. The U.S. Geological Survey says more than 43 million Americans still drink from a private well right now, today. And the CDC's own published guidance is that a properly built and maintained well is perfectly safe to drink from. The water was under your feet the entire time. Somebody just wanted their meter standing between you and it. Number 16, the traveling knife grinder. He came through the neighborhood with a foot treadle grinding stone strapped to a bicycle or a push cart, ringing a bell, and for pocket change, every blade in your house came back sharp enough to shave the hair off your forearm. 15 minutes of his work a month kept a good knife keen for a lifetime. It was a living you could carry on your back. Then two things happened, one after the other. Shop class got cut out of American schools between the early 1970s and the mid-80s as a simple budget line item, so a whole generation of kids grew up and never once met a whetstone. And the razor companies figured out something the grinder never would have, that you'll pay more forever for a cartridge you throw in the trash than for a single edge you keep and maintain. A good stone costs a few dollars and lasts your whole life. A disposable blade runs money out of your pocket every month until the day you die. Somebody sat down and did that math. It was not you, neighbor. Second pattern break. Now we're into the trades where the rule against you exists in a code book that a lobbyist paid good money to have written. And number 6, we're getting closer to it. Hold on. Number 15, the backyard forge. Walk into Colonial Williamsburg in Virginia today, and you can stand and watch a working blacksmith and a farrier do exactly what every crossroads in America once had within a mile: hammer out hinges, nails, tools, latches, and horseshoes from a coal fire and an anvil. A village smith was the hardware store, the mechanic, and the emergency room for tools, all rolled into one shed with a chimney. He never wanted for work, and he never wanted for pay. Then industrial hardware, stamped out by the thousand, made every single one of those objects cheaper to buy than a man could make it. And today, shoeing a horse for money means insurance and, in a great many places, a certification and a license. Nobody ever burned the anvil or outlawed the hammer. They just quietly made sure the next generation would only ever see a working forge behind a velvet rope in a museum town. Fire, iron, and muscle, the oldest maker's trade there is, and it still works the way it did in 1750. Number 14, hide tanning and leather work. A man could take the hide off an animal he was already eating for supper, flesh it clean, work it soft, smoke it over a low fire, and turn out a piece of leather that lasted him 20 hard years. The old Cherokee had a saying that my grandfather wrote down in his journal: every animal carries enough brain to tan its own hide. I'll be honest with you, because Eli was honest with me. I ruined my first 3 tries at it. The dog wouldn't even chew the results. It took me until the fourth hide to pull a piece of leather off the frame that didn't crack the moment it dried. The trade was never once banned. It was simply replaced by chrome tanning in factories after 1900 EU. And now the EPA has to police those very same tanneries for the chromium that runs off them into the water. The old brain tan way left nothing behind but a soft hide and a story worth telling. Number 13. Custom butchering and on-farm slaughter. Come the first hard cold of fall, a man who truly knew his knives went farm to farm through the whole community, killed the hog, cut it clean into hams and shoulders and bacon and lard, and took part of the meat as his pay. It was a skill, and whole neighborhoods ran on the men who had it. Then the Federal Meat Inspection Act of 1906 built a wall between inspected commercial meat and everything else. And while custom slaughter and butchering for your own family stayed perfectly legal, the moment you sold that meat to a neighbor without running it through a federally inspected plant, you had a serious federal problem on your hands. Swift and Armour, and later the industrial packers led by Tyson, founded back in 1935, turned meat into an industry that the backyard butcher could never once step back into. The knife still cuts exactly the same. The paperwork is the part they built to keep you out. Number 12. The small grist mill. Down in Cades Cove, in the heart of the Great Smoky Mountains, the John Cable Mill still turns creek water into cornmeal the very way that thousands of little mills once did in every valley in this country. A miller ground a farmer's corn and kept a portion of it, called the toll, as his honest wage. No electricity, no fuel, no bill of any kind, just falling water and a heavy stone. A mill was the beating heart of a settlement, and the miller was a man of standing. Then the great industrial roller mills, the ancestors of the brands filling your bread aisle right now, made flour so cheap and so relentlessly uniform that the little water mill simply could not compete, and the country quietly let the whole skill slide off into the museum it now lives in. That creek is still running past those wheels today. It never once in 200 years sent anyone a bill. Number 11. Charcoal burning, the collier's trade. Long before there was a bag of briquettes hanging by the register at the gas station, there was the collier, a patient man who stacked hardwood into a great smoldering mound, sealed it with earth, and tended it around the clock for days to make clean-burning charcoal that the blacksmiths and the households bought by the sack. It was hot, watchful, genuinely skilled work, and it paid a living to anyone willing to lose the sleep. Cheap mined coal and then mass-bagged fuel undersold the collier into oblivion, and modern air regulations turned his old open earth burn into a nuisance citation. In most places, you'd try it now. The hardwood is still standing free behind the house, same as ever. We just plain forgot it was ever fuel a man could sell. Third pattern break, and right here I owe you some honesty, because we are getting into the deep end of this thing. Not every trade left on this list is legal to do for money in your county today. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. So I'll mark the line clearly on each one from here down, so you know exactly where it sits before you ever think about crossing it. Number 3 is the one the Smithsonian keeps under glass. Number 1 is what all 25 of these have been quietly pointing at the entire time. Number 10, backyard eggs and poultry for sale. Every farmhouse and half the town lots in America once kept a dozen hens out back, and the extra eggs were cash money, a small, steady income that cost about a penny a bird a day to feed. A good hen laid you close to 300 eggs a year, and 6 of them turned a corner of your yard into a paycheck. Then post-war suburban zoning swept across the whole country and reclassified poultry as livestock, banning hens outright from residential lots by the 1960s. Right at the very moment Tyson was building an industrial poultry empire out of the exact same birds your grandmother had kept for nearly free. 6 hens in your backyard was competition, and competition had to go. Here's the genuinely good news, and it is real and it is happening. In just the last several years, well over 100 American cities have gone and legalized backyard hens all over again by ordinance. The hen never once left. The rule book did, and now, brick by brick, it's changing back. Number 9. Herbal remedies sold at the stand. This is the one that'll get you a citation, like I promised at the top. Your great-grandmother kept a whole shelf of remedies in the pantry. Yarrow for a cut, mullein for a cough, elderberry for the winter fever. Grew half of them herself, traded for the rest, and sold what was left over to neighbors who trusted her hands more than they trusted the town doctor. Growing those plants was never once illegal. But the Federal Trade Commission Act of 1914 expanded again and again over the decades, together with the FDA's authority over health claims, means the exact moment you say out loud that a plant treats a condition and you take $1 for it, you have crossed a bright line the pharmaceutical industry spent an entire century lobbying to draw. Pfizer and Merck did just fine out of a public that got taught year after year that a leaf couldn't possibly help. And yet the National Institutes of Health itself now acknowledges documented antiviral activity in elderberry against influenza. The plant grew long before the FDA ever existed. It still grows, but sell it with a promise attached and you will hear from somebody in an office. Number 8. The lay midwife. For most of American history, babies were caught at home by a midwife who learned her whole trade at another woman's elbow, one birth at a time, and she was paid in cash, in eggs, in a day's labor owed, whatever the family had to give. She was often the most trusted woman in the county. Then birth was moved wholesale into the hospital and the entire trade was medicalized around her. And today, whether a midwife who isn't a nurse can legally take money to attend your birth depends entirely on which state line you happen to be standing behind. In many states, she's licensed and respected and legal. In others, doing that same ancient work is a criminal risk that can land her in a courtroom. Nobody ever outlawed the knowledge itself. They just drew a careful map around who is and isn't allowed to use it for pay. Number 7. The Cooper. This is Elias Furr's trade, the old man from the very top of this video. Walk into Colonial Williamsburg and you can still stand and watch a master cooper raise a whole barrel from flat oak staves using nothing on this earth but fire, water, and iron hoops. No glue, no screws, no nails. A container that holds liquid dead tight for decades on end. Fewer than a few hundred true working coopers are left in this entire country now. Steel drums and factory cooperage killed the trade. And here is the bitter joke of it. Not because the wooden barrel ever failed, but because it lasted too many years to keep selling a man a new one. Elias raised 4 children on staves and hoops, and a skill his father put in his hands. The county decided that needed a permit he couldn't afford. The oak is still bending over the fire, same as it did in 1790. The permit is the only thing about it that's new. Number 6. Here it is, friend. Home distilling. The copper pot, the coiled worm, the corn mash working and bubbling in an oak barrel in the corner of the shed. It is the single oldest liquor-making technology in the entire Western world. And it sits at number 6 because I gave you my word I'd give you the line straight. Federal law, Title 26 of the United States Code, Section 5601, with its roots running all the way back to the excise tax Congress first laid on distilled spirits in 1862, makes distilling drinking alcohol without a federal permit a felony. Up to 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine enforced today by the TTB. Beer and wine got a home production exemption back in 1978. Spirits, very deliberately, did not. I'm not telling you to run a still. I want that clear. I am telling you it exists, and I am telling you it was made a crime in 1862 for one plain reason above all others. The government wanted the tax that licensed distillers paid, and an untaxed jar of corn whiskey was money walking out the door. Popcorn Sutton ran a copper still in the hills of Cocke County, Tennessee, the very same way his own people had for 100 years before him. and the law came for him at 71 years old. And here's the thing the record shows. The technology isn't even obsolete. A copper pot still actually strips out sulfur compounds that big industrial columns still leave sitting in the product. It's not worse than what you buy. It's just not yours to run for free. Fourth and final pattern break. 5 left now, the very top of the count. And every single one of them, somebody in an office somewhere, decided you should never learn. Number 3 is the Smithsonian one I keep promising you. Number 1 is the whole entire point of everything I've said. Number 5, beekeeping for honey and wax. 4 straw or box hives set behind the smokehouse gave a family 60 to 100 pounds of honey per hive every year, beeswax for candles and salves, and cash money at the Saturday market. It was one of the cleanest little incomes a piece of backyard could produce. Then colony collapse hit the national headlines in 2006. City zoning banned hives as livestock in town after town after town, and cheap imported and adulterated honey came in to fill the grocery shelf, right where the local jar used to sit. Here's the figure that ought to stop you cold. The USDA credits honeybees with pollinating right around $15 billion worth of American crops every single year. Your grandfather kept bees in the plain backyard, no permit, no fuss. Now, in an awful lot of towns, it takes a zoning variance and a fight with a neighbor to do the same thing. The bees, for their part, never asked anyone for either one. Number 4, the wheelwright. At Colonial Williamsburg, you can watch one of the last true working wheelwrights build a wooden wagon wheel entirely by hand, shaping the hub, driving in the spokes, and shrinking a red-hot iron tire down onto the wooden rim so that it grips tighter and tighter as it cools. For the whole of human history, everything that rolled anywhere rolled on a wheel that a man exactly like this made with his own 2 hands. It was skilled, essential, respected work in every settlement on the continent. Then the automobile and the rubber tire came and ended the entire trade inside a single human generation. And today, you could count the people left alive who can genuinely still do it on not very many hands at all. The wooden wheel never stopped working. We just stopped ever making our own. Number 3, the water-powered sawmill. I told you the Smithsonian keeps one behind glass, and I meant that literally, not as a figure of speech. An up-and-down sawmill out of Chester Springs, Pennsylvania, a water-powered vertical saw, and an unusually complete survivor of its kind, was carefully dismantled and moved to the Smithsonian in Washington, precisely because it represents the very last time ordinary Americans turned their own standing trees into finished lumber, using nothing but a creek and the pull of gravity. A sawyer took his neighbor's logs, ran them through the saw, and kept a share of the sawn boards as his pay. It was a good living built on running water. Then Weyerhaeuser and the industrial timber giants made cut lumber a national commodity, and the thousands of little water mills fell silent one at a time, until this one right here ended its days under museum lights. Fewer people can run one today than could 100 years ago by a country mile. Water, stone, a blade, and the patience to let the creek do the labor for you. Number 2, the root doctor. Up in these hollows there was always a granny woman or a root doctor, somebody who knew 40-50 plants by name and by exact use, who could set a broken bone, brew the cough syrup, poultice a wound, and got paid in whatever the family had that week. My grandfather's journal lists 41 plants by name, in order, with what each one was for. The steady medicalization of the whole country and the long reach of the FDA and the AMA turned that hard-won knowledge into something you are quietly not supposed to charge $1 for anymore. And the drug companies did very well indeed out of a public that slowly forgot a pantry shelf could double as a medicine cabinet. But the National Institutes of Health itself now documents real, measurable activity in some of those very same old plants. The knowledge grew here long before the license ever did, and it is still growing right outside the door. And now, number 1. Number 1 is not a trick, friend. Number 1 is the thing that every one of the 24 before it has been quietly pointing straight at the whole time. And you cannot buy this one, and you cannot build it out in a shed. You can only decide it. Independence, owning your own work, owning your own name, making your own living with your own 2 hands, on your own ground, so that no man in an office anywhere can ever turn you back into a tenant on the land your family bled and saved for. Every single trade I just counted down for you is 1 brick in that 1 wall. The broom you tie, the barrel you raise, the hive you keep out back, the blade you sharpen for the man 3 doors down, every one of them is a dollar that stops flowing out of your house and starts flowing into it instead. And every one of them is a small, solid piece of the exact thing your great-grandparents simply had, and were slowly, patiently, profitably talked right out of. Elias Furr, the cooper from the top of this video, he did not die a poor man. He died a free one, doing the only work he ever wanted to do in this life. Right up until the morning, a piece of paper on a barn door told him that a man on his own land was no longer allowed to make his own living. That right there is the thing they actually came for, not the barrels. The freedom the barrels bought him. Now here is what I want you to actually go and do, because 25 is far too many, and I am not going to lie to you about that. Don't you dare try to learn all of them at once. Pick one, just one, this week. If your hands are steady, buy a whetstone this coming Saturday and put a real edge on every dull knife on your street for $5 a blade. That's a trade you can start this very night at the kitchen table. If you've got a patch of open yard, order broomcorn seed for the spring and teach yourself to tie 1 single broom. If you've got a quiet neighbor with a fence line, go and ask him about a beehive, 1 brick. Then next month you lay another one beside it. I have watched families right here on this ridge replace a real honest paycheck with 2 or 3 of these trades stacked together, and I am not selling you a dream when I tell you that. I am telling you the plain arithmetic of it. A man who can make and a man who can mend simply cannot be squeezed as hard as a man who can only ever buy. So tell me, down in the comments below, which one of these 25 did your own people actually run? Name it for me. My grandfather's journal has better than 300 more of these trades written down in it, and the one that gets named the most times down there is the one I take apart start to finish in the very next video I make. Tap subscribe right now so it doesn't slip past you, because next time I am walking you through the forgotten backyard trade that fed whole mountain families straight through the Great Depression on nothing but a creek, a barrel, and 1 plain skill the government then spent 100 years trying to license clean out of existence. Keep the old ways, neighbor. They are the ones that kept us.